It is my wife's funeral, a gray afternoon where the church bells toll as if dragging chains through the air. People file past whispering condolences, yet their eyes linger longer on my old faded suit than on my grief. As I lower myself onto the wooden pew, I notice an envelope resting beneath the hymn book. It is cream-colored, its edges frayed, and the handwriting on it is unmistakable. My late son's gone 10 years now. For a moment my breath halts. The loops of his letters are burned into me. I taught him how to hold a pen when he was 7. My fingers tremble as I trace the ink, feeling a personal trace that should not exist anymore. Around me the organ plays, but inside my head silence presses like a weight. The gap between my grandson and me, the cold 3 years since he stopped speaking to me, stretches across the aisle like a canyon. The early stakes are written in my grandson's smirk and the hushed words I overhear. The old man won't last long. He'll die poor. My heart clenches not from age but from betrayal that stings sharper than the funeral incense. I slip the letter into my coat, too afraid to open it yet, but knowing I must, because whatever secret it carries, it was meant for me to find today, and that was only the beginning. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I stare at the coffin draped in white lilies. Ordinary flowers, yet one catches my eye, a single rose with a ribbon tied around its stem. On it, faint handwriting, my son's nickname for me, Papa Bear. The perfume of the rose mixes with the wax candles, anchoring me in a haze of memory. But even as grief washes over me, I sense eyes on my back. My grandson leans near a cousin, whispering, pointing at the scuffs on my shoes. Their muffled laughter slices deeper than the priest's solemn words. Silence has its own way of speaking. The funeral should be about honoring my wife's life, yet betrayal leaks through the cracks of every word spoken around me. I cannot shake the thought that the letter, the rose, and the mocking voices are threads of the same knot, one I am destined to untangle no matter the cost. The church empties slowly, mourners drifting away like shadows dissolving into dusk. I remain in my seat, coat buttoned against the chill that seeps through the stone walls. My daughter murmurs something about heading home, but my ears are still ringing with my grandson's words, louder than the priest's sermon, "Grandpa will die poor." When I finally step outside, the air bites with late winter sharpness. Families cluster together, comforting one another. I stand alone at the edge of the steps, clutching the mysterious envelope inside my coat. My grandson doesn't look at me. Instead, he struts across the gravel path, his new shoes polished, his laughter too loud for a funeral. I clear my throat, hoping to catch his attention, but he passes by as if I were invisible. 3 years of silence weigh between us, heavy and deliberate. Once I carried him on my shoulders, his small hands gripping my hair as he squealed with joy. Now, he won't even meet my eyes. A mainstream fact anchors me. Psychologists often say, estrangement between grandparents and grandchildren has less to do with age and more to do with poisoned influence. I can almost see it whispers in his ear, seeds of disdain sown by others at the table. My daughter ushers him into the car. He slams the door harder than necessary. Through the window, his mouth twists, words forming I cannot hear, but can read perfectly. Pathetic old man. The cold silence that follows is worse than any insult spoken aloud. Back at home, the house feels emptier than ever, though the scent of incense clings to my clothes. I make tea the way my wife used to, strong, no sugar. Steam curls into the air like ghostly fingers. I set the cup on the table, but I don't drink. My eyes keep drifting back to the envelope. I hesitate. There's a superstition I once heard from an old neighbor: opening a letter from the dead before midnight invites misfortune. It's foolish, I know, yet tonight in my solitude I cannot ignore it. Instead, I slip the envelope under the wooden box that holds our family photos. But even as I do, I hear laughter echoing again, my grandson's voice replaying in my head, cruel and sharp. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. Later that night, I wander through the hallway. My wife's scarf still hangs on the hook, carrying the faint scent of lavender. I press it to my face, pausing in silence, letting grief and betrayal wrestle inside me. That's when I notice the phone blinking on the counter. A voicemail. It is my neighbor, Mrs. Kim, her voice hushed. "I saw your grandson outside earlier. He looked angry. He tossed something into your trash bin before leaving. A quirk of fate, perhaps, or another cruel reminder." I step out into the cold, lift the lid, and find a crushed paper cup. Written on its side in marker, "Old Man." It's not much, but it confirms what I already knew. His contempt isn't momentary. It's deliberate. It's fed. And as I stand there holding that cup, I realize whatever truth the letter holds, it may be the only weapon I have left. Morning light filters weakly through the curtains, pale and brittle, as though the sun itself has lost interest in shining for me. My wife's chair sits empty at the kitchen table, and the silence that fills the space is suffocating. I sip the tea I reheated from last night, its bitterness a reminder that I am drinking alone. The envelope lies where I left it beneath the wooden photo box, as if it carries a weight far beyond paper. With a trembling hand, I finally open it. Inside, folded once, is a small note, only a few words written in my son's hurried, familiar script. "Papa Bear, keep this safe." And beneath it, something slips out. A brass key. Small, old-fashioned, with delicate teeth worn from use. It clinks against the wooden table like a bell in an empty hall. For a long while I stare at it. What door could it possibly open? A drawer. A lockbox. The key looks ordinary, yet its timing is anything but. My son has been gone for 10 years. Why is this surfacing now at my wife's funeral, carried by invisible hands? I place the key in my palm, turning it over. A mainstream fact presses into my mind. Locksmiths often say, every key has a story, a unique cut, a unique lock, like fingerprints of the steel world. This one tells me nothing except that it is mine to solve. But as I sit there, memory stirs, a whisper from the past. My son, 3 weeks before his accident, leaning close to me over the garage workbench, his voice hushed. "There's a safe place, Papa Bear. If anything happens, you'll know." I had dismissed it then, a young man's attempt at being mysterious, maybe even rebellious, but now the key feels like the echo of that unfinished sentence. Silence has its own way of speaking. I carry the key through the house, trying it on old locks. The tool cabinet, the cellar door, none fit. I feel foolish, like a child with a puzzle too difficult. And yet with each failure, my determination grows sharper. Then in the living room, I pause by my wife's flower vase, the one we bought at a flea market decades ago. Behind it rests the narrow drawer of my desk. The lock has been jammed for years. I stopped bothering with it. But something inside me insists. The brass key slides in, turns smoothly, clicks. My breath catches. Slowly I pull open the drawer. Inside rests a yellowed family photograph, the four of us standing at the beach, my son's arm around his sister, my wife's laughter frozen in time. Beneath it, carefully folded, is a document bound by ribbon. A wave of unease washes over me. Why hide this in my desk? Why leave it for me now? My fingers hesitate above the ribbon, but the silence in the room demands I continue. I untie it, revealing an official paper stamped with an unfamiliar seal, wax deep red, its imprint too intricate to decipher. The date shocks me. Over 10 years ago, before my son's death. The words blur as I read the first line. If anything happens to me, this will speak louder than I can. The letter, the key, the seal, all converging threads in a story I never knew existed. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I sit there frozen, the old photograph trembling between my fingers. My son's smile beams at me from decades past, his eyes full of promise. I can almost hear his laughter carried on the ocean wind from that summer day. The ribbon and sealed document rest beside it, heavy as stone, but my gaze clings to the picture. Memories flood back, one in particular. 3 weeks before his accident, late at night in the garage. He had grease on his hands, a wrench clattering on the floor. He leaned toward me, voice low, almost conspiratorial. "Papa Bear, there's a safe place. If anything ever happens, you'll know." I brushed it aside, then chalked it up to youthful drama. But now, with the brass key still warm in my pocket and this sealed paper on my desk, his words rise like smoke from a smoldering fire. I smooth the document across the desk. The wax seal is intricate, pressed with a symbol I don't recognize, some sort of scales surrounded by laurel leaves. A lawyer's seal, perhaps? But the detail is unusual. I recall once reading that in some older practices, attorneys would commission personal wax stamps, each with hidden marks only they understood. It was both a signature and a safeguard. The mainstream fact anchors me: wills and legal documents often come in multiples. A filed version, an unfiled version, sometimes even drafts hidden away in safes, awaiting the right moment. This one feels too deliberate, too secret. I hesitate. My son's handwriting flashes in my mind, the note inside the envelope, those hurried words. Keep this safe. Did he mean the key, the drawer, or the sealed will itself? Silence has its own way of speaking. Unable to open the seal just yet, I place the photograph back on the desk and close my eyes. A quirky memory surfaces, an old superstition my grandmother used to share: never break a wax seal after sunset, for it binds more than words. It binds the soul. She believed doing so could invite unrest. My rational mind dismisses it, but tonight I am less certain. I let the seal remain intact. Instead, I tuck the document back carefully, almost reverently. My hand lingers on the key in my pocket, the cold metal a steady presence. When I step into the hallway, I pause by the window. Across the street, a shadow lingers beneath the lamppost. At first, I think it's my grief playing tricks, but then the figure shifts, lighting a cigarette. The brief flare illuminates a face, too young, too sharp, my grandson. What is he doing out there at midnight, watching my house? My heart pounds as I step back into the darkness of the hall. Questions claw at me. Did he know about the key, about the drawer? Was the mocking at the funeral just cruelty, or a warning that he knows something more? I grip the window ledge until my knuckles whiten. Betrayal runs deeper than words. It seeps into silence, into shadows waiting under streetlights. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The next evening, I force myself to attend the family reception at my daughter's house. It feels less like a gathering of mourners and more like a banquet staged for appearances. The chandelier glitters overhead, catching in every wine glass, every polished fork. Laughter fills the room, loud and hollow, echoing against the walls like false applause. I sit quietly at the far end of the table, my old suit wrinkled, my hands folded in my lap. My daughter fusses over serving dishes, avoiding my gaze, and my grandson, tall now, shoulders, broad hair, slicked back as if he owns the world, sits at the head of the table. Not me. The seat where I once presided is no longer mine. That empty space between us feels wider than any ocean. Midway through the meal, he rises. A crystal glass in hand, his knuckles flashing with a new silver ring, he taps it with his fork. The room falls silent. He smiles, but there's no warmth in it. To my grandmother, he begins, voice smooth, theatrical. A woman of strength, of grace, who gave us everything. Polite nods follow murmurs of agreement. Then his smile shifts just slightly as he raises his glass higher. And to my grandfather, who has nothing left to give. A ripple of awkward laughter spreads. He pauses, savoring it. Let us wish him a long life, he adds, though he'll die poor. The words stab deeper than the wine burns. My fork clatters against my plate. For a moment I cannot breathe. My daughter bites her lip but says nothing. The others exchange uneasy glances, their silence a heavier condemnation than any spoken word. I feel the weight of the key in my pocket as though it grows heavier with each sneer. The sealed document lies hidden back home, but its presence throbs in my mind like a heartbeat. If only they knew. A mainstream fact crosses my mind. Inheritance disputes are among the most common causes of family estrangement. More than divorce, more than distance. Money, or the perception of it, poisons bloodlines faster than any toxin. I watch my grandson take a long sip of wine, his eyes glinting with triumph. He thinks he has already buried me, not just my wife. Silence has its own way of speaking. And in that silence, I hear my son's voice again. Trust no one, not even blood. After the toast, I excuse myself, stepping onto the balcony to catch my breath. Cold air rushes into my lungs, sharp cleansing. From inside, muffled laughter continues, punctuated by clinking glasses. I lean against the railing, staring at the city lights. My wife's absence aches beside me, an invisible wound. Yet beneath that ache, a resolve begins to take shape. They think I am finished, that I will fade into poverty, into irrelevance. But the letter, the key, the seal, these are not relics, they are weapons. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. That night, when the house is finally quiet, I return to my study. The echo of my grandson's cruel toast still lingers in my ears, autopos, each word pressing against my chest like a weight I cannot shake off. The bitterness of wine lingers too, though I barely touched my glass. I close the curtains and sit before the desk, the brass key in my palm once more. Its edges dig into my skin, sharp enough to remind me that something real, something tangible, waits for me. The sealed document has already unsettled me, but I cannot leave it at that. I need more. Answers hide in shadows, and I intend to drag them into the light. The desk smells faintly of cedar, aged and dry. I run my hand along its drawers, each one familiar yet suddenly foreign. Then my fingers pause on the lower drawer, one I had long forgotten its lock, stubbornly jammed for years. My breath slows. I insert the key. A soft click. The sound feels louder than a thunderclap in the silence. Inside the drawer is lined with dust as though no hand has touched it in a decade. But nestled against the back are two things, a family photo and another folded sheet of paper. The photo first, my son, my daughter, and me on a fishing trip. My wife must have taken it. My son's hand is raised, holding up a small catch, his grin wide. His eyes sparkle with the same confidence I saw in him during our last garage conversation. The sight of him alive, captured in a moment of joy, cracks something inside me. Beneath the photo lies the paper, folded crisply, too deliberately to be accidental. I unfold it with care. It is a document typed official-looking and sealed at the corner with another mark of wax, the words across the top, "Last Testament." My throat tightens. A mainstream fact comes to mind legally. A will is valid the moment it is signed, even if never filed. Courts may dispute it, lawyers may battle it, but the ink itself holds power. This paper could change everything. And yet what unsettles me more is a single handwritten line at the margin, faint but unmistakable. My son's writing again. If anything happens to me, this will speak louder than I can. I place the document on the desk and lean back, staring at the ceiling. The house hums faintly with the ticking of the clock every second, a reminder that time is pulling me forward whether I want it or not. A curious thought strikes me, absurd but persistent. Years ago, a colleague of mine told me about a folkloric belief that photographs trap fragments of the soul, and that keeping them near legal documents strengthens bonds across generations. The memory feels strange now, yet I glance at the photo again. My son's grin, his pride, his youth. Did he believe in such things? Did he hide this will with his image so that his presence would remain even after death? Silence presses into the room, heavy and suffocating. I whisper into it, "Son, what did you leave me?" But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The candle flickers on my desk, shadows stretching across the paper like dark fingers. My eyes keep returning to the wax seal stamped on the folded document. Unlike the first seal, this one bears not scales and laurels, but a different image, an unfamiliar crest, angular and sharp, almost like crossed keys beneath a crown. I lean closer, running my finger over its hardened surface. The grooves are deep, precise, not the work of some careless notary. Whoever sealed this wanted permanence. My stomach twists with unease. Why two seals? Why two documents? And why hide them in different places as though scattering breadcrumbs for me alone? I recall a fact from years ago when I dabbled in estate planning with a lawyer friend. He once said, "A family can keep more secrets in wills than in diaries. One for the courts, one for the heirs, and sometimes one for the truth." His words strike me now like a bell tolling in the night. I hold the document up to the light, tilting it. The wax glistens, and I notice faint scratches beneath the crest, almost invisible. Letters, numbers. My breath catches as I trace them. They seem to form 13B, a code, perhaps, or a reference. The silence of the house deepens, pressing on my ears. I glance toward the window, half expecting to see that shadow again, my grandson's cigarette glowing like a watchful eye. But the street is empty tonight, only the faint hum of a streetlight buzzing. Still, the sensation of being observed lingers. I set the paper down, palms sweating. My hand reaches for the photo again, needing the comfort of my son's frozen smile. And in that moment, a memory jolts through me, his voice urgent, almost pleading. "Papa Bear, if anything happens to me, you'll know." The key in my pocket grows heavier, as if tied to that memory. Did he mean for me to piece this together slowly, or was I too late, 10 years too late, and now only shadows remain? A quirky recollection surfaces when I was young. Uncle told me that wax seals were once believed to carry not only authority but fragments of a man's soul. Breaking one was said to unleash not just words but intent. At the time I laughed. Tonight I do not. I hold the document caught between reverence and fear. My hand hovers above the seal. Should I break it? Should I wait? My pulse quickens, each beat loud as a drum in my ears. Then creak. A floorboard groans somewhere in the house. My head jerks up. I whisper into the silence, my voice trembling. "Who's there?" But no answer comes. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The sound of the floorboard still echoes in my mind as I sit frozen at the desk, the sealed document before me. My breath fogs in the dim light, though the heater hums softly. I force myself to listen, ears straining, every nerve taut. Nothing. Just silence. Perhaps it was the house settling, or perhaps not. I return my gaze to the wax seal. My fingers itch to break it, to peel back the folds and see what my son tried so hard to conceal. At last, I press my thumb against the hardened crest and snap it open. The wax cracks sharply, a sound too loud for the still night. The document unfolds slowly, revealing a page yellowed with age. Typed lines stretch neatly across it, but my eyes fall instantly on a sentence halfway down, written in my son's own hurried script. If anything happens to me, this will speak louder than I can. My chest tightens. My son anticipated betrayal dangers, something dark enough to silence him forever. And he left this for me. Me, the man his own grandson now mocks as useless. I skim the typed lines, legal phrasing clauses about property stocks, assets, and then a peculiar entry, a reference to Box 13B, First National Bank. My heart pounds as I recall the faint scratches beneath the wax seal, 13B, so it was no coincidence. A mainstream fact surfaces: safe deposit boxes often hold not just money, but deeds, wills, sometimes even private letters. Families use them to keep secrets shielded from both thieves and kin. But here's the strange part. The clause specifies that the box contents are to remain sealed until directly claimed by me. Not my daughter, not my grandson. Me alone. I lean back in my chair, the paper trembling in my hands. Silence presses in again, thick as fog. Then a quirky thought worms its way up, something I once heard from an elderly neighbor. She said banks gave numbers ending in B to boxes reserved for bloodline access only. I'd always thought it was folklore, a silly superstition. But tonight, with my son's words before me, I can't dismiss it so easily. I placed the paper flat on the desk, tracing the ink. My son had planned this. He had known something would come, some betrayal close enough to choke him. And now, 10 years later, his plan is reaching me. I whisper into the silence, "Son, what did you know?" Then a faint tap, tap, tap against the window. My head whips around. For an instant I see nothing, only the darkness of the street. But as my eyes adjust, I catch movement, a shape, someone pulling back into the shadows. My pulse surges. My grandson. Or someone else. The document lies open on my desk, vulnerable, its secrets spilling into the air. I slam it shut, clutching it to my chest. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. Morning creeps into the house with a gray, reluctant light. I haven't slept. The document lies folded inside my coat pocket, heavier than any stone. My son's handwriting still burns in my mind. This will speak louder than I can. Over breakfast, the silence is unbearable. My daughter arrives unannounced, carrying a basket of fruit, her voice brittle with practiced cheer. "Thought you could use these," she says, setting them on the table without meeting my eyes. I decide not to wait. My voice cracks as I ask, "Did you know about this?" I place the folded paper gently onto the table between us. Her hands freeze mid-motion. Her eyes flicker down but refuse to linger. "What is it?" she asks too quickly, her tone rehearsed. "You tell me." I press, though my voice is low. "Your brother left this. He wanted me to find it." She swallows hard, tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, and suddenly busies herself with arranging apples. "You shouldn't dwell on old things, Dad. It's not healthy." I lean forward, studying her face. Her lips tremble, though she forces them into a thin smile. She knows something. That much is clear. Silence has its own way of speaking. She shifts the subject, asking if I've been taking my heart pills, if the house feels too empty without Mom. All distractions, all diversions. But her hands betray her. She cannot stop fiddling with the fruit, lining them into rows, breaking them apart again. A mainstream fact anchors itself in my mind when questioned. Liars often resort to unnecessary details or busy hands, as though the physical act can drown the truth. My daughter is drowning before me. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whisper. Her eyes finally meet mine, wide, glistening, but she says nothing. Only the sound of her breath, shallow and uneven. Then she stands abruptly, grabs her coat, and mutters, "I have to go." I remain seated long after the door slams. The basket of fruit glows in the pale morning light, ordinary and absurd in its neatness. One apple rolls free, bumps softly against the folded paper as though nudging me forward. A memory flickers, an old superstition from my wife's village. They believed apples placed in a house carried omens, fresh ones for harmony, bruised ones for betrayal. I glance at the basket again, realizing several are mottled and soft beneath the skin. My daughter knew. She chose what to bring. I pushed the fruit aside and pressed the paper flat once more. My daughter's silence screams louder than words. She is hiding something, whether out of guilt, fear, or loyalty to someone else I cannot yet say. But one truth becomes clear as I sit alone in that kitchen. This document is not merely a hidden will. It is a fuse. And someone in this family is terrified of the spark. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. By the weekend, whispers begin to curl through the small town like smoke. At the grocery store, I hear them, first two women at the produce aisle, lowering their voices as soon as I pass. "He's got nothing left," one says, as if I've already vanished from this world. At the barber's, the clippers buzz in my ears, but I can still catch fragments from the waiting chairs. Poor old man. Lost his wife, lost his money. Soon the house, too. Their pity tastes worse than contempt. It spreads fast, these rumors, as if someone is feeding them, watering them like weeds. And I know exactly whose voice has been carrying them further. My grandson has always loved an audience. When Sunday comes, I walk to church, coat collar turned up against the wind. The pews are crowded, though the air feels colder than the stone walls. I settle into my usual place, but heads turn. Some nod politely, others avoid my gaze altogether. During coffee hour, the whispers sharpen. He'll have to sell the place. The grandson will take over everything. Their words sting less because of what they mean, and more because of who repeats them. Neighbors who once leaned on me for favors, people who knew the sound of my wife's laughter in their kitchens. A mainstream fact drifts through me like an unwanted guest. Financial status more than character often decides the measure of respect in a community. I've lived long enough to see it proven again and again. When I step outside, Father Thomas places a gentle hand on my arm. "Stay strong," he murmurs, though his eyes shift away. Even he is hurt. And then in the parking lot, I see them, my grandson and a cluster of his friends. They lean against his car, laughing too loud for Sunday morning. One of them points toward me, and my grandson mimics a begging gesture, palms outstretched. The boys erupt in laughter. Silence has its own way of speaking. I keep walking back stiff, but inside, rage coils like a living thing. That evening, I sit at my desk again. The sealed document lies beneath my hand, but I don't open it. Instead, I stare at the brass key. My son left me this path, and already the town seems determined to close it before I can walk it. A quirky thought surfaces. An old saying from my father: gossip moves faster than fire because it doesn't need wood, only tongues. Tonight, I feel its truth. The fire has already spread, and I'm standing at the center of the flames. But then as I slip the document back into its envelope, something catches my eye. A faded rectangle taped to the back, a business card yellowed at the edges. A name. A number, a lawyer's office I've never heard of, and for the first time in days, a flicker of hope sparks in me. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. The business card feels fragile in my fingers, its edges curled, the ink faded but still legible. Richard Hale, attorney at law. An address downtown, one I vaguely remember from years ago, though I've never set foot there. I hold it up to the lamp. The faint impression of tape lingers on its back, as though my son had hidden it with deliberate care. Why tuck it behind the will unless he wanted me to find it only after I'd read the words? The silence of the room hums louder than the clock on the wall. My son's voice seems to whisper through the stillness. Trust. No one, not even blood. The next morning, I take the bus into the city. My daughter had called earlier, urging me to rest, not to tire myself. I told her I was going to the pharmacy. I didn't tell her about the card. The attorney's office sits above a row of shops, its window sign chipped, the letters dulled by dust. Inside, the air smells faintly of old paper and leather. A secretary glances up, her expression neutral, until I hand her the card. Her eyes widen almost imperceptibly, then she disappears behind a door. Moments later, a tall man in his 60s steps out, hair white at the temples, spectacles perched low on his nose. "You must be him," he says softly, as though confirming something long expected. "Yes." I answer, my voice dry. "My son left me this." I slide the document and card onto his desk. He studies them in silence, adjusting his glasses. Then he exhales slowly and locks the door. "I didn't think this day would come," he admits. The air shifts. My skin prickles. "You knew my son?" I ask. "More than you realize," he replies, his tone measured. He opens a drawer and retrieves a thin file, dust motes rising as he sets it down. Your son? He came to me years ago, troubled, convinced someone close to him wanted what was his. He asked me to prepare something in secret. A mainstream fact anchors me. It is not uncommon for clients to draft alternate wills hidden until certain conditions are met. But the lawyer's grave expression suggests this was no ordinary precaution. He flips open the file. Inside are more pages, more seals. My heart hammers as I lean closer, but he raises a hand. Mr. Hale, he says carefully, before you see this, you must understand it may divide your family beyond repair. I hesitate. Breath caught between fear and need. Then I nod. Show me. His fingers brush the papers aside, revealing another folded envelope, this one addressed in my son's unmistakable handwriting. To my father and only him. The sight steals the air from my lungs. My throat burns as I reach for it, hands trembling. A quirky thought surfaces, suddenly something I once read in a folklore book. Unopened letters were believed to hum at night, whispering truths too heavy for the living. I almost laugh at the memory, yet tonight, staring at my son's writing 10 years after his death, I feel that hum deep in my bones. The lawyer's eyes meet mine. Are you ready to know what he left you? I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. I sit across from the lawyer, the envelope in my trembling hands. My son's handwriting glares at me, bold and insistent, to my father, and only him. 10 years gone, and yet here he is, speaking through paper and ink. Mr. Hale leans back in his chair, his fingers steepled. The blinds behind him filter the sunlight into thin stripes across the desk, as though even the day itself wants to hide what's about to be revealed. Why now? I whisper, more to myself than to him. Why did he leave this to me? The lawyer's eyes soften. Your son. He feared betrayal. He suspected that those closest to him might one day turn against his wishes. He asked me to hold on to this letter and to give it to you only if certain conditions were met. Conditions. My voice is sharp with suspicion. He nods slowly. The condition was your wife's passing. He believed she would keep the family together. Once she was gone, he feared the others would circle like wolves. My chest tightens. The ache of her absence mixes with the sting of his foresight. My son had known. He had seen the cracks long before I did. I break the seal carefully, each tear sounding like thunder in the quiet office. Inside is a handwritten letter longer than the scraps I've seen so far. Papa Bear, it begins. The words blur as tears well in my eyes. If you're reading this, it means I didn't live long enough to tell you in person. I've hidden what matters most in Box 13B at First National. Inside you'll find not only assets, but proof of who can and cannot be trusted. Trust no one at home, not even blood. My pulse quickens. Assets proof. What kind of proof could he mean? I glance up. Mr. Hale is watching me closely. His voice drops. Your son was a careful man. He told me things I wasn't comfortable writing down. He feared that one day someone would turn your own grandson against you. The words hit like a blow. My throat closes. He said that. The lawyer nods. He worried that greed would find its way into your family. A mainstream fact slides into place. Greed doesn't always roar. Sometimes it whispers, slipping into children's ears until they mistake it for truth. My grandson's mocking words echo inside me. Grandpa will die poor. I fold the letter and slip it back into the envelope. My hands shake, but my voice is steady. I need to see that box. The lawyer hesitates, then retrieves a second sheet from his file. It is a claim slip stamped with the same crest as the wax seal I saw earlier. He entrusted me with this. You'll need it to open the box. Without it, even the key won't be enough. The slip feels like fire in my hands. Between the brass key in my pocket and this paper, the path ahead is opening, but so are the dangers. As I leave the office, the afternoon sun glares harshly, forcing me to squint. On the street below, I catch a flicker of movement. My grandson again, or someone shaped like him, leaning against a lamppost watching. When I blink, the space is empty. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. By the time I return home, the letter from my son feels like it's burning through my coat pocket. I sit at the kitchen table, the same place my grandson mocked me with his laughter only days ago, and spread the letter flat before me. The ink looks darker in my dim light, as though it has ripened with A. Box 13. B. Assets. Proof. His words drum in my mind, proof of who can and cannot be trusted. I whisper it aloud, the sound strange in my empty kitchen, like speaking to ghosts. The brass key rests beside the envelope, glinting faintly. For years it had waited in silence. Now its purpose sharpens into focus. The lockbox is real. The secrets inside are real. The next morning I make my way to First National Bank. The building looms over the street, its marble steps worn by generations. Inside, polished floors reflect cold light. A clerk greets me with professional detachment, but when I hand her the claim slip and the key, her posture stiffens. One moment she says quickly, then disappears through a door. Minutes pass. I tap my fingers on the counter, heart thudding with each second. Finally she returns with a manager in tow, a middle-aged man with kind eyes but a voice too careful. "Please, sir, follow me." We walk down a narrow hallway past doors locked with electronic codes until we reach a heavy vault. The manager inserts a card, turns a dial, and the door groans open. Inside, the air smells faintly metallic, chilled. He leads me to a row of boxes. "Number 13B, he says, glancing at my key. My hand trembles as I slide it into the lock. It fits perfectly. The click echoes off the stone walls. I pull the box free and set it on the table. For a long moment, I stare at it. My son's voice whispers again in my memory. "Trust no one, not even blood." When I lift the lid, I gasp. Stacks of papers bound neatly, deeds to properties I never knew he owned, certificates for stocks and bonds, some dated years before his death, more wealth than I imagined possible. But it isn't the wealth that shakes me most. It is the slim black notebook resting on top, my son's handwriting sprawled across the cover. "For Papa Bear's eyes only." I open it. Page after page he has written names, dates, suspicions, notes about conversations with my daughter, mentions of my grandson's friends, their strange questions, their sudden interest in his finances, and one sentence underlined twice. "If anything happens to me, ask who benefits." My blood runs cold. A mainstream fact strikes me in criminal investigations. The first question is always motive. Who benefits from the loss? My son had been asking that before his death. A quirky memory surfaces too, something he once said during a fishing trip. "Dad, when people smile too wide at you, it usually means they're already counting your money." I'd laughed then. Now the words chill me. I close the notebook, my hand trembling. My family, their silence, their whispers, their mocking suddenly feel sharper, more dangerous. I thought I was safe, but I was wrong. The very same evening, I'm summoned for dinner at my daughter's house again. She insists it is to spend more time together, but I know better. Since my wife's passing, invitations have carried more weight than warmth, each one a quiet summons to remind me of my place. The dining table glows under a chandelier, too bright, its polished wood reflecting the silverware like a mirror of false civility. My daughter smiles too tightly, setting plates as though arranging pieces on a chessboard. And there at the head of the table sits my grandson. My seat. He does not even look at me when I enter, as though I were already gone. I slide into a chair near the end, the air heavy with roasted meat and unspoken tension. My fingers curl around the brass key in my pocket, steadying myself. The notebook and deeds lie hidden at home, their weight still burning in my thoughts. Halfway through the meal, my grandson clears his throat and rises with his glass of wine. His voice carries smoothly over the clatter of cutlery. "Let us toast," he begins, that smug smile spreading across his face. "To family, what's left of it." A few strained chuckles ripple through the room. My daughter lowers her eyes to her plate, refusing to meet mine. Then he continues, his words deliberate, slicing through the silence. "I'll soon inherit everything. Grandpa's house, what little is left of his accounts. The estate will finally be in capable hands." My heart hammers against my ribs. He speaks with such certainty, as if my death were already scheduled. I study his face, searching for the boy I once carried on my shoulders. All I find is cold ambition. A mainstream fact presses into my mind. Under probate law, heirs often act as if assets are theirs long before any legal transfer occurs. It is human arrogance to assume possession before time allows it. Yet tonight his arrogance feels more like prophecy than presumption. I glance around the table. Not one person challenges him. My daughter's silence is the loudest. I grip my fork so tightly my hand shakes. My grandson takes a slow sip of wine, eyes locked on me now. "Don't worry, Grandpa," he says, mocking kindness, dripping from every syllable. You won't live to see the struggle of poverty. I'll take care of everything when the time comes. The room holds its breath. I hear only the ticking of the clock on the wall, each second pounding like a drum. Silence has its own way of speaking. And in that silence, betrayal echoes louder than any toast. I rise abruptly, my chair scraping the floor. Enough. My voice trembles, but not from fear, from fury, from grief. You speak as though I'm already buried. Is that what you want? My grandson smirks, lips curling into something crueler than laughter. He does not answer. He doesn't need to. I sit back down, my hands trembling, my mind ablaze. The notebook, the will, the box. They are my only shield now. Without them, I am already dead in his eyes. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The ride home that night feels endless. Streetlights flicker through the car window, slicing the darkness into jagged fragments, each one replaying my grandson's smug smile. His words, so calm, so certain, sting worse than any wound. You won't live to see the struggle of poverty. When I finally reach my house, I slam the door shut behind me. The walls seem to close in thick with betrayal. I pace the living room, fists clenched, veins pulsing. How did we get here? How did love curdle into greed, respect into mockery? I think of my wife's funeral, of the letter of the brass key that started it all. My son saw this storm coming. He knew. And I was blind. The fury in me swells until I can't hold it anymore. I march to the desk, pull out the notebook from the lockbox and slam it open. His handwriting leaps from the pages, raw and urgent. Notes of suspicion, names circled, arrows drawn, and one phrase underlined twice. If anything happens, ask who benefits. My chest tightens. Who benefits? The answer stares me in the face. I sit at the desk trembling. I recall a mainstream fact from a documentary I once saw. Most homicides within families are tied to financial disputes. Greed doesn't just divide, it kills. And here I am holding my son's private warnings, while his own child, my grandson, speaks as if my death is already written into the calendar. I grip the notebook until my knuckles whiten. My fury feels dangerous now, a roaring flame against years of patience. I slam my fist onto the desk, the sound reverberating through the empty house. For a heartbeat, it feels like my son is here, demanding I act, demanding I protect what he left behind. Silence has its own way of speaking, and tonight it tells me I can no longer endure. I take the notebook, the deeds, the letter, and spread them out across the desk. It looks less like family keepsakes and more like evidence in a trial. My trial, my family's. A quirky recollection stirs in me, an old folk saying from my wife's village: when blood turns against blood, the house itself weeps. I glance at the ceiling, half expecting it to groan beneath the weight of betrayal. The clock ticks louder as though agreeing. I whisper to the empty room. They think I'm weak. They think I'm finished. My voice trembles, but my heart steadies. They're wrong. The fury crystallizes into resolve. At the next gathering, I will no longer sit silent at the far end of the table. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The following afternoon, Mr. Hale, the lawyer, calls me back to his office. His tone on the phone is clipped urgent, as though something has shifted beneath his feet. There's one more thing, he says, something I didn't show you the first time. You'd better come in. When I arrive, the blinds are drawn tighter than before, the office darker, more suffocating. He doesn't waste time with pleasantries. From a locked drawer, he retrieves another envelope, its wax seal intact, the paper yellowed and brittle at the edges. This, he says carefully, sliding it toward me, was addressed to you as well, but it came later, months after the first. Your son insisted it remain sealed until the time was right. My hands tremble as I touch it. The seal is different again, this time a single circle enclosing a key. My chest tightens. Another key, another clue. I break the seal slowly, the wax snapping like brittle bone. Inside is a folded page, my son's handwriting scrawled across it in uneven strokes. Papa Bear, if you're reading this, then you found the first. But it isn't enough. You need the second. There are things the box cannot hold, things too dangerous to place in the bank. I've hidden them elsewhere. The clue is simple. Trust no one, not even blood. Look for the place untouched by their hands. Look for the lock that only you would remember. I swallow hard, the words blurring as my throat tightens. My son is speaking across a decade, guiding me still. But what place did he mean? What lock only I would remember? Mr. Hale watches me closely. There's more, he says, pulling another folded slip from his drawer. He left this with me too, a safety deposit receipt. But it isn't for the bank, it's for a private storage company outside town. Number 27. He warned me. Someone might try to reach it before you. The weight of his words crushes me. My grandson's smirk at dinner, his certainty, his whispered claims they weren't arrogance alone. They were the confidence of someone who already suspected a second treasure. A mainstream fact steadies my spiraling thoughts. Private storage lockers are often used to safeguard sensitive items, art jewels, even confidential documents precisely because they exist outside the legal systems heirs can manipulate. My son must have known this. He must have known his own blood could not be trusted. I slip the new envelope into my coat. The silence in the office grows heavy like a storm pressing down on the roof. Then faintly a sound from outside, tires screeching, voices raised. I move to the window, peel the blinds back. Across the street, half hidden near a lamppost, a figure smokes a cigarette. My stomach lurches. That stance, that profile, it's him. My grandson. He lifts his head and for a heartbeat our eyes meet through the glass. His expression is cold, almost triumphant. Then he flicks the cigarette to the ground and disappears into the crowd. I turn back to the lawyer, my voice hoarse. He knows. The lawyer's jaw tightens. Then you must move quickly, before he gets there first. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The envelope and its words weigh heavy in my coat pocket as I return home, the bus rattling through gray streets that feel colder than ever. Look for the place untouched by their hands. Look for the lock only you would remember. My son's riddle loops endlessly in my head. I unlock the front door and step into the silence of my house. Every corner holds echoes of the past, my wife's scarf still draped on the hook, her perfume faint but stubborn, my son's old baseball glove resting high on a shelf. What place would be untouched by their hands? What lock only I would remember? I walk the rooms one by one until my eyes fall on the garage door. My chest tightens. The garage, the last place I spoke to my son the night he whispered, "There's a safe place." Inside, dust floats in the shafts of afternoon light. The smell of old wood and motor oil clings to the air. I run my hand across the workbench, the surface scarred with years of hammer blows and scratches. And then I see it, an old tool chest tucked beneath the bench, its padlock rusted but familiar. I kneel, fingers trembling as they trace the cold metal. That lock, yes, I remember it well. My son had begged to keep it when he was a teenager, saying it made him feel like he owned something secret, something only he and I could touch. The brass key. I pull it from my pocket, my hand shaking. It slides and turns and clicks. Inside the chest lies not tools but a small wooden box, its lid etched with my son's initials. My breath catches as I lift it out, dust rising in soft clouds. It is lighter than I expect, almost deceptively so. I carry it to the desk and open it. Inside, carefully folded, are more papers and a flash drive. My pulse quickens. The papers are bank receipts, investment records, and handwritten notes. But one sheet stops me cold. A simple ledger of payments, names scrawled beside amounts of money. And one of those names is my daughter's. My throat closes as I stare at it. Regular payments, monthly, marked with his handwriting. Keep her quiet. Silence has its own way of speaking. A mainstream fact cuts through my shock. Hush money leaves trails. It always does. My son must have uncovered something dangerous, something he tried to cover by paying his own sister. But when I glance at the flash drive, small and unassuming. Technology has never been my strength, but I know enough to realize it may hold the rest of the truth. A quirky memory surfaces, absurd in its timing. My son once joked that USB drives were like Pandora's box, tiny things that could unleash storms if opened. As I stare at the drive in my palm, I finally understand his words. I slip it back into the wooden box, lock it again, and place it beneath my coat. My grandson's smirk, my daughter's silence, the ledger of payments, they are threads in a noose tightening around me. And yet I feel my son beside me, guiding me, warning me. But I soon realize that wasn't the worst of it. That night, sleep will not come. I sit in my chair, the small wooden box resting on my lap, the brass key still in my hand. The ledger of payments gnaws at me. My daughter's name written in my son's hand beside figures I cannot ignore. Keep her quiet. Quiet about what I rise to pour myself a glass of water, but as I pass the study, something freezes me in my tracks. The drawer of my desk, the very one where I had hidden the sealed will, stands open by half an inch. My breath stops. I hadn't touched it since leaving for the lawyer's office. I'm certain. I push the drawer open fully. Papers lie scattered in disarray. The photo of my son at the beach, the folded ribbon moved, shuffled. Someone has been here. I step back, heart hammering. The front door is locked, the windows latched. Still, someone entered, someone searched. A mainstream fact hits me hard. Most burglaries are not random. They are committed by someone who knows the target, someone aware of what they're looking for. My hand tightens around the brass key until it cuts into my palm. My grandson's watchful eyes outside the lawyer's office, his smirk at the dinner table, it all floods back like poison. But there's more. On the floor beneath the desk, I find a small scrap of paper torn from a notebook. A single word scrawled in unfamiliar handwriting. Mine. Silence has its own way of speaking. I stumble into the hallway, switching on every light in the house. The shadows recoil but do not vanish. The scarf still hangs on the hook, but for the first time it feels less like comfort and more like a reminder that this house is no longer safe. A quirky memory surfaces, one I never thought I'd recall. My grandmother used to say, "When the dead leave you warnings, it isn't ghosts who are dangerous, it's the living." Tonight her words are truer than ever. I gather the documents, the notebook, the flash drive, and slip them into a satchel. If they could get into my home, once they could do it again. As I double-check the locks on every door and window, my chest tightens with the thought I cannot shake. My own blood may not just be waiting for me to die. They may be planning to hurry death along. I whisper to the empty rooms, to my son's lingering presence. I hear you. I understand now. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The next morning, I leave the house before dawn. The satchel is strapped across my chest. My fingers clench tightly around its strap as though it contains my very heartbeat. The streets are empty, the world hushed in the fragile hour before sunrise. Every shadow feels alive. Every corner hides a watcher. When I arrive at First National Bank, the doors are still locked, but I wait on the steps until the clerks arrive. My breath fogs in the cold air. A man sweeping the sidewalk glances at me, curiosity in his eyes, but I keep my head down. As soon as the bank opens, I head straight to the vault. The manager recognizes me from before and escorts me in silence. His expression is more cautious this time, as though he knows the gravity of what I'm about to do. At the vault door, the air cools sharply. He gestures toward box 13B. My brass key slides in with uncanny ease, clicking like a final piece of a puzzle snapping into place. I pull the box out and set it on the table. My hands are trembling, my pulse rushing in my ears. The lid creaks as I open it. Inside, beyond the deeds and certificates I had seen before, rests a small envelope marked with my name. Beneath it, wrapped in plastic, lies a portable hard drive. My stomach tightens. I tear the envelope open. My son's handwriting fills the page, Papa Bear. If you've come this far, then you know the truth is not in one place. The house, the garage, the storage locker, they each hold pieces. But this is everything. Deeds, accounts, recordings, proof of betrayal and proof of love. You will see who stood with me and who plotted against me. Keep it safe. Share it only when the time is right. And remember, trust no one, not even blood. My throat burns as I clutch the letter. 10 years gone, and he still guides me step by step. The hard drive feels heavier than it should. I slip it into my satchel next to the flash drive from the wooden box. Together they hum like twin hearts. Secrets waiting to be unleashed. A mainstream fact flickers in my mind. Encrypted drives can hold evidence, emails, recordings, financial trails that survive even when people think they've erased their sins. If my son left this behind, it must contain something explosive. I whisper to the box, to his memory. I'll guard it, son. I promise. Yet as I prepare to leave the vault, I notice something unsettling. The manager's eyes linger on the hard drive a moment too long. He quickly looks away. But I feel it. The curiosity, the knowledge that something unusual has just passed through his hands. Silence has its own way of speaking. And this silence tells me word may spread again faster than I can contain it. A quirky thought drifts back to me unbidden. Years ago, my son once laughed about modern technology. It doesn't matter how strong the lock, Dad. Once someone knows you have it, they'll never stop until it's theirs. The echo of his words makes my grip on the satchel tighten. I step out of the vault into the glaring light of day. On the street corner across from the bank, a familiar figure waits, cigarette glowing, watching, my grandson, but I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I freeze on the bank's marble steps, the satchel heavy against my chest. My grandson stands across the street, cigarette dangling between his fingers, smoke curling lazily as though he has all the time in the world. His eyes meet mine, cold and unblinking. He doesn't cross, he doesn't wave, he just watches. And somehow, that is worse. I force my legs to move, turning down the sidewalk, heart hammering. His presence trails me like a shadow. I don't look back until I reach the bus stop. He's gone. But the fear remains. That night back home, I decide to plug the portable drive into my old laptop. The screen flickers to life, humming softly. At first, nothing but ordinary folders, accounts, properties, investments. Then I see one labeled Play Me. My hand hesitates on the trackpad. My son's voice whispers from memory. Trust no one, not even blood. I double-click. The screen fills with static, then steadies into a video. My son sits at his desk, eyes heavy, voice low. Papa Bear. If you're watching this, it means I didn't make it. I've kept records, proof of the betrayals around me. They want what I built, and I fear one of them may even hasten my end. Trust the paper trails, Dad. Trust the recordings. And remember, when silence surrounds you, it often means danger is already inside your home. My throat tightens as his face fades from the screen. His warning burrows into my chest like a blade. I sit back, trembling. Silence stretches through the house, pressing into my ears. But then I hear it, the faintest creak of a floorboard above me. I freeze. No one should be here. A mainstream fact chills me. Burglars often return to the same target once they know valuables exist. But this doesn't feel like a burglary. This feels like something else, like I'm being hunted. I grab the satchel, shove the laptop inside, and slip into the hallway. My breath is shallow, my pulse racing. On the landing of the stairs, a sliver of light cuts under my bedroom door. I'd left it dark. Someone is in there. I step back, gripping the railing for support. My knees shake. A memory surfaces unbidden. My wife telling me long ago that the spirits of the dead visit through lights left burning. But this isn't her spirit. This is flesh and blood and greed. Silence has its own way of speaking. And in this silence, I hear danger breathing just beyond the door. I retreat quietly, slipping out the back door into the night air. My chest aches, my lungs tight. The satchel feels heavier with every step. On the street corner, under the halo of a flickering lamppost, I see him again. My grandson. Watching. Waiting. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. I cannot run forever. The weight of the satchel, the notebook, the drives, and the will presses against me like an anchor. My son did not leave these for me to cower in the shadows. He left them for me to use. And tonight, I decide to act. I call my daughter and tell her we need a family dinner. My tone is firm, leaving no room for refusal. She hesitates, but eventually agrees. Fine. Tomorrow night, she says. I hear voices in the background. My grandson's laughter sharp as a blade. When I hang up, I whisper to the empty room, "It ends tomorrow." The following evening, I arrive at her house with the satchel clutched tightly. The table is set, candles flickering, food steaming. My grandson sits at the head again, smirking when he sees me. My daughter busies herself with plates, avoiding my eyes. The others gather expectant. I wait until the first course is served. Then I rise. My chair scrapes against the floor, the sound slicing through the chatter. I place the satchel on the table and unzip it slowly. I've listened to your whispers, I begin, my voice shaking but loud enough to silence the room. I've heard your laughter, your predictions of my poverty, my death. But you were wrong. Your father, my son, saw you coming 10 years ago, and he left me proof. Gasps ripple around the table. My grandson's smirk falters. I pull out the notebook, the deeds, the will, laying them one by one before them. The paper stacks like evidence at a trial. He left properties, accounts, and more than that, he left his words, his warnings, his suspicions, written down, recorded, preserved. You thought I had nothing? Look closely. I hold everything, my grandson scoffs, trying to recover his composure. This is pathetic, he sneers. Fake documents. An old man's fantasy. You expect us to believe this garbage? I slam my hand down on the notebook. The sound echoes, startling even me. Believe or don't. It changes nothing. The law will see the truth. Your father's voice is on these recordings. His handwriting fills these pages. He knew one day greed would rot this family, and he was right. My daughter's fork clatters onto her plate. Her hands tremble as she stares at the ledger where her name is written. Tears pool in her eyes, though she says nothing. Silence has its own way of speaking. My grandson leans back, lips pressed into a thin line. His face pales as I pull out the final letter, the one addressed to me in my son's handwriting, and read aloud, "Trust no one, not even blood." The words hang heavy in the air. My grandson's smug mask shatters. He glares at me, jaw-tight, eyes burning with something darker than anger. But for the first time, the power is mine. A quirky memory comes to me, almost absurd, in the moment my wife once said, "The quietest man at the table usually holds the sharpest knife." Tonight, I understand her meaning. My silence had fooled them. They thought me weak. But weakness is sometimes a mask, and masks can be torn away. I gather the documents back into the satchel, my movements deliberate. This family will face the truth I declare. Not my truth, not your lies, his, my son's. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The silence that follows my words is heavier than any storm. My grandson's smugness drains from his face, replaced by something raw, panic perhaps, or rage. His glass tips spilling red wine across the tablecloth like a spreading wound. My daughter covers her mouth, eyes locked on the ledger where her name is written. Her shoulders shake. "Dad, I can explain," she whispers, but her voice cracks under its own weight. The others around the table look from her to me, suspicion simmering in their eyes. I let the silence stretch. I want them to feel it, to hear my son's warnings in the stillness. Finally, my grandson slams his palm onto the table. "This is manipulation," he snarls. "You forged this junk to pit us against each other. You're desperate. You want control back, but it's too late." I lift my gaze steady now. If I forged it, then why does your father's handwriting run through every page? Why is his voice recorded on this drive? Why did he leave these warnings 10 years ago before his death? His jaw clenches. The others murmur. My daughter sobs quietly into her hands. A mainstream fact flickers through my mind when confronted with undeniable evidence. Liars often grow louder, not quieter. It is the volume of fear disguised as confidence. Tonight I see that truth etched on my grandson's face. He rises suddenly, his chair scraping back. None of this matters. "When you're gone, everything falls to me anyway. No scraps of paper can change blood. I rise too, though my knees tremble." "You're right. Blood doesn't change, but it betrays. And your father knew it would. That's why he trusted me and only me, not you." For the first time, his face pales, lips pressed thin. The mask shatters. He looks less like the arrogant young man who mocked me at my wife's funeral and more like a cornered animal. I glance at my daughter. Her tears have left streaks down her cheeks, her shoulders hunched. She whispers again, almost too softly to hear. "He made me take the money. He threatened to cut me off. I had no choice." The words hang in the air like broken glass. The family stares at her, some in shock, some in disgust. Silence has its own way of speaking. I collect the notebook and drive, sliding them back into the satchel. Their weight feels lighter now, not because the burden has lessened, but because the truth has begun its work. A quirky thought surfaces from my memory. My wife once said, "When you drop a plate, it doesn't matter if you say sorry, the cracks still remain. Tonight, the cracks are everywhere, running through every face at this table." I tighten the satchel strap and step toward the door. "This isn't finished," I say quietly. "The truth will finish it for me." Behind me, the sound of broken voices rises, my daughter weeping, my grandson cursing, the rest of them whispering. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The morning after that stormy dinner, the house feels different. Not quieter, no silence still lingers like smoke, but charged, as if the walls themselves know something has shifted. I set the satchel on my desk, the weight of the notebook, and drives pressing into the wood. My son's voice echoes in memory. "Trust no one, not even blood." Word spreads quickly. By noon, whispers ripple through the neighborhood. Old friends call me, some offering sympathy, others fishing for details. They've heard fragments of what happened at dinner. They want the whole story, but I give them nothing. I've learned that every word spoken aloud becomes another weapon in the wrong hands. At the market, people watch me differently. Their pity has dulled, replaced with cautious curiosity. "The old man's got something," I overhear one say. "Something big. They don't know what, but they can smell it. Wealth or scandal or both." By evening, my daughter arrives at my door. Her face is pale, her eyes swollen from crying. She doesn't step inside, only clutches the doorframe as though she needs its support. "Dad," she whispers. I never meant for it to go so far. I stare at her, searching for the little girl who once held my hand at the seaside, who once brought me wildflowers with a smile. But all I see is a woman trapped in her own guilt. "You took his money," I say quietly. Not an accusation, a truth. Her lips quiver. "He made me Dad. He said if I didn't, he'd tell everyone what I—" She cuts herself off, biting the words like they might strangle her if spoken. Tears spill down her cheeks. "I'm sorry." Silence has its own way of speaking. I do not move to comfort her. A mainstream fact strikes me. Remorse often follows exposure, not the sin itself. If the truth had remained hidden, would she still be standing here, or would she be at the table raising a glass with him, waiting for me to vanish? A quirky memory bubbles up in the tension. My wife once joked that apologies were like cheap wine poured too late and bitter to the taste. Tonight, her words sting with bitter truth. I close the door gently. Her sobs fade into the night. Later, I sit with the notebook open on my lap. The entries blur in the dim light, my son's handwriting alive with suspicion strategy warnings. I realize that these pages, these drives, these deeds, they are no longer just records. They are a shield. Without them, I am a target. With them, I hold the balance of power. And yet, even as the power settles into my hands, the loneliness sharpens. My wife is gone. My son is gone. My daughter, broken. My grandson, consumed. The inheritance I've uncovered feels less like wealth and more like a battlefield. But I soon realized that wasn't the worst of it. The house is quiet again, but it is no longer the silence of betrayal. It is the silence of aftermath, of dust settling after a storm. I sit at my desk, the satchel resting nearby, its contents now more familiar than frightening. My son's letters, the deeds, the notebook, the drives, all the pieces of his warnings surround me like sentinels. I trace my fingers over his handwriting one last time. It feels almost like touching his hand, bridging the 10 years that separated us. His voice has carried me through the darkness step by step until the truth was undeniable. The family has scattered in the days since the confrontation. My daughter avoids me, her apologies drowned by guilt she cannot escape. My grandson no longer mocks me openly, but I see the anger smoldering in his eyes whenever our paths cross. He has learned too late that arrogance has consequences. I reflect often in these quiet hours on the nature of family. We are taught that blood binds, that kinship is unbreakable. Yet I have learned what my son already knew: betrayal does not come from strangers. It comes from the table you shared your bread with, the ones you carried on your shoulders, the ones who should have guarded you most. A mainstream truth comes to mind: most family estates collapse not because of poverty, but because of distrust and greed. Wealth magnifies character, whether noble or corrupt. My family is proof of that, and yet I cannot live in bitterness alone. A quirky memory drifts into my thoughts, one that almost makes me smile. My wife used to say, "Justice doesn't shout. It whispers and waits." She was right. Justice has whispered through these documents, through the warnings of my son, through the silence that revealed more than words ever could. I lean back in my chair, close my eyes, and breathe. For the first time in weeks, I feel something almost like peace. Not because the wounds are healed, they never will be, but because the truth has been unearthed. My son's voice has been honored. I whisper toward the photograph of him on my desk. "You were right, son. You saw it all before I did. And I carried your words until they burned in the open. The truth is yours, and I will guard it." The clock ticks gently. The scarf on the hook sways in the draft, carrying her lavender scent. In the stillness, I feel them both with me, my wife and my son, not gone, not forgotten, but present in every breath, every page, every secret revealed. Thank you for staying with me through this story. If it touched you, please subscribe and continue with the next story in the playlist.